Hello and welcome. This is Campbell from Spiral Up, and today we have another chat with Inara or Sayonara. And again, we're going to hit the topic of males and females out their roles, relationships, families, and all that good stuff. So join us and let's get into it.
Struggles, questions, all that is, and see if we can answer some.
Not that I'm an expert or anything, but
No. But this is
yes.
the thing. What's an expert? What's an
Right.
expert these days? It's just someone who's been trained by men who don't know what they're talking about and paid too much
Right.
money for it. So we need to get back to experience-based knowledge, I think.
Yes, I agree.
You have the floor now. Let's jump into it.
Okay. Well, last time we sort of started with we got to men is the masculine is the head and the woman is the heart, but we didn't really go into all the other sort of symbolic or alchemical differences or notions about masculinity and femininity. So in addition to the head and the heart, there's also the sun. Men are the sun, women are the moon, and which also goes with, men are earth and fire, so they're solid, grounded, steady, passionate, active.
Lions.
Yes, that's the next thing I was going to say is the lion.
Got the big mane of the sun. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so women then are air and water, fluid, flowy, moving, like the weather, and which is tied to the moon, and our hormones.
Well, Eve, Adam and Eve,
Right.
evening,
Right.
Eve, moon. Yep.
And hormonally, we're different every single day. Men will look at a woman and be like, "Who are you?" Well, not the same person I was yesterday. And that's challenging for us too. Because men hormonally they're straight line. And so it's hard for them to deal with the storms that we can be sometimes. But that's what women. That's one of the things that they want in a man is someone who can weather those storms, and isn't going to get thrown off too much by that, to kind of direct that energy and contain it a little bit so it doesn't get out of control. And
like a solid platform, a stabilizer sort of.
Something to help ground all that, and
ground. That's
and which is why women actually do want, they don't want to be the boss. They want the man to be the captain of the ship, and sort of, steer the course and, around all their weather. And, and they don't make those decisions necessarily. They want the man to be able to do that. And, obviously it's a combination effort, but and the woman, so if the man is sulfur and the lion, woman then would be Mercury, which is obviously silver in color. So then, ties into the moon there again. And the silver gate. Do you know what the silver gate is? Astrology. It's located up near the hand of Orion, and the mythology is that the silver gate in the heavens is where souls enter the physical plane. And if you look at, our overlords know this because they build things that tell us. The St. Louis Arch in the middle of America, well, it's silver, right? It's big arch, looks like a portal.
And
the park underneath.
Have you seen that it frames the sun? I've got a photo of it framing, like with the sun right in the middle of it on a solstice or something.
And it's also directly across from the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco.
Okay, yeah.
And there's actually a triangle. Kaya Crone is in the middle of a great series about the three gates: the Silver Gate, the Golden Gate, and the Lions Gate, which is up in Vancouver. But the Silver Gate is, like I said, where souls would enter the physical plane, so woman. And the park that's underneath Gateway Park and it's actually called Gateway Park. And if you look at it from an aerial view, it's laid out and looks exactly like a female reproductive system.
So I think I've seen that shot, actually. I think I've seen that photo. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. And of course, then we have all the obelisks in the Vesica Pisces that are all over the place as well.
Right. Yeah. And and so to the man's lion, the woman then is the eagle, up in the air, flying on the breeze, coming down into the water to catch the fish. And what was interesting is if you put an eagle and a lion together, you get a griffin. So if anybody out there knows if there's like an alchemical significance to the griffin, but that seems to be in heraldry and lots of ancient things.
Yeah.
So
I was reading something about that, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But it was to do with like ascension and yeah, sort of the lion to the griffin to the, I think they said to the dragon or something.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, there's something in that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Something's in there. Dig some more. And so then, as far as personality aspects, men are vision. They're visual. They're analytical, goal-oriented, mission, problem solving. Where women, of course, are more intuition. They're internal. They're emotional. They're verbal and communication-wise, like in the David Dida book that we talked about last time, where he tries to explain women's thinking to guys. He says one of the chapters is called "Women Are Not Liars," and because it can be confusing that we would express ourselves one way about something, and then the next time we talk about it, we would say something that seems completely different. But it really isn't. It's just how we communicate. It's not linear. It's emotion based. It's it's the true representation of what we're feeling at that moment, which may come out a little differently or may have different aspects to it each time it comes up. So if men understand that, then it's easier and not so crazy seeming. And and men are competitive. They like challenge. They grow by challenge. They want, that's how they make themselves better, is competing against other men. And women are more inclusive. They're more about creating harmony rather than what, that competition, which seems like disharmony, which really isn't, but it's just a way of doing things, and because they have different needs. Men want to be useful,
different energy.
Yeah, men want to be needed, they want to be useful, and they want to be respected. And women want to be loved, and what that basically means is they want to feel connected. And so it's just different sides of the same thing, I think, but it's
just expressed differently.
Right. Because
we just need to work out that connection. That's the whole problem, isn't it? Getting that interconnecting those two different energies or viewpoints or whatever.
Because everybody assumes, until you learn differently, that everybody's brains work like your brain works, right? And so you think, well, this is how I would respond to this. So why isn't she responding like, why does she get mad when I try to fix her problems? It's like, well, women don't necessarily want you to fix their problem. They want you to be there to help them feel through it, or just, be that grounding presence while they figure it out. That doesn't mean they want solutions all the time, which might seem odd to a guy,
I know, right? Come on, I've got the answer. What are you doing? But and I agree. I mean, all they want really is just someone to listen to, really, isn't it? It's just they just want to voice their opinions and get it out, I guess.
Sure, right, because they're processing that way. They process verbally, where men, I think, process more mentally. And then there's obviously the protector, provider aspect of the masculine, and the nurturing, encouraging aspect of the feminine. And both work together too. And
I mean, look what happens when single children raised with single parents, and that they clearly they do have more issues integrating, just because they've only got one half of the story most of the time.
Right.
I mean, if they're lucky, they have grandparents or uncles or whatever, or aunties, but most of the time they only get that one viewpoint, and which probably makes it more confusing, because at least if you get two viewpoints when you're talking, you can go, okay, well, they're at least sort of in that group or whatever. Which it's just the breakdown of the family again, isn't it? That's what it gets down to, really.
And it's interesting, they've done studies where the children tend to follow the father, and I think, at least in our culture, that's because it's a very God is put forth as a masculine thing, and so they say that children's first sort of way of figuring out who God is to look at the father, so and I don't know if that would be different if society was different and that wasn't presented in that way, if there was still a divine feminine aspect to the culture, or if it's just the natural way of things that the children tend to follow. For instance, if the father goes to church, the kids will go to church, and as adults, whereas even if their mother, dad just kind of never went or occasionally went, then the kids grow up and that's what they do, and they haven't figured out why that is yet.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's like there's two different roles. So, and we know that, that the fathers, the males, are more about teaching kind of rules, or how to conduct yourself, how to integrate, how to build a life, how to be productive, all that kind of stuff. Where mothers are much more about nurturing and how to treat people and how to be, and how to your emotional side, really, how to be a good person. And whereas the father will be a good person, build something good, treat people well. With them, the mothers are a lot more on the emotional side, and you need both. This is how we get these hard businessmen, isn't it? And they think, oh, I'm just helping people make money in stocks, and before you know it, they're a psychopath because they've got no emotional base.
Like that movie. Oh, speaking of movies, I watched. We were talking about how there aren't really any good role models in the movies anywhere, and I happened to watch just a few days ago a movie filmed in Australia. And did you ever see The Dressmaker? It's a really good. It's not really a guy movie, so
I think I heard about it. I think there was a little bit of sort of noise about it in Australia when it got released. It was a while ago, I think, wasn't it? Like, but no, I've never seen it. No. Yeah,
I hadn't even heard of it, and I watched it the other night, and wow, it was. It had all kinds of things, but the thing that stood out the most was the main male character was such a good example of how to be a man. He was not doing the dumb things that the other guys were doing, and he was just strong and solid. And it was played by Liam Hemsworth, which surprised me because he's not usually in that kind of movie,
Yeah, he's not only in the backgrounds, kind of. He's not his brother, is he?
Right. And and then his brother obviously is over the top, the other direction, being superheroes and all of that. So
Yeah.
but yeah, give me a chance to see it. It's an enjoyable movie
Right.
because there's just the dynamic between the men and women, and the good examples of masculine and feminine in that movie, and the really bad examples of masculine. It's funny, and it's happy, and it's sad, and it's all kinds of things. I really enjoyed it. But that was one.
Well, we don't
good
get
example.
stories much anymore, do we? Like, not stories. We get scripts. Right. Movies are now scripts, and they're written as like And Australia, it does tend to still be able to make fairly good movies. They're all sort of low budget and that, but yeah, Hollywood hasn't quite infiltrated us down here yet. Though they're trying.
Yeah, this one didn't have a lot of expense involved in the set or anything, so it was simple, but it was really good. I liked it. Lots to think about.
Yeah, we need more of it, less of the flashiness and a bit more substance.
Right.
UAP
And that's
put
what I liked about
up a video about Dinner with Andre. Have you ever seen? I mean, you've probably heard of.
Oh, I almost watched that
it's
today.
pretty famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the whole movie's just two people talking, and no flash, no special effects, no nothing, just conversation, and it's a really famous movie. Yeah, exactly. That's what people, I think, want. Like all these franchises, because that's what a movie is now. It's not to tell a story; it's to make money. It's franchise. Part one. How do we just keep pushing? How do we keep beating this thing until it's dead? And it's so that's failing. I mean, all the Star Wars fans are running away. Just that they're just in horror of what's happening to the franchise, and so it's kind of funny. Oh, that's good. All right. What was that called? The Dressmaker.
Yes, with Kate Winslet and Liam.
Oh, Kate Winslet too. Wow, cool. All
and
right.
Judy Davis. There, lots of people you'll recognize in there.
Yeah. All right. Oh, cool.
So I guess the next question is, how do we make it work, right? And any thoughts before I?
No, I thought you were going to tell me. I was waiting for the answer. What is it?
I'm not an expert. I'm just throwing some things out there to think about, I guess. But yeah, communication obviously is the key, and because I think that's where most people break down is, they make assumptions about the other one's intentions or motivations or how they receive what they're saying or whatever's happening. And if you can't talk about it honestly, then that makes it difficult. And I think that's hard for guys, because women are so much more verbal. And I think there's some have told me that they just feel that's intimidating, and especially if it involves a vulnerability of theirs, they'd really rather just avoid that. But those are the things you really need to get at, to make it work properly, and work through those things.
Again, it's focusing on the short term and sort of forgetting about the long term, isn't it? It's will I be embarrassed in the moment now for a little bit if I talk about this or expose myself? But if you look at 5 years down the track, if you don't do that, whereas you're not going to have a relationship or it's going to be really bad. So it's like that roomie, right? Just step out on the way, and the way appears. You just got to sometimes trust and just take a chance,
Right.
just go for it and see
It's
what happens, right?
terrifying sometimes, but
And if it
yeah,
all turns out bad, then that's a good message too, right? If it all goes, you know, upside
well,
down,
right. Then
then
you
that's a good message.
persevere.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
okay. Communication.
and women will, they want to make sure you're solid. They don't consciously think that. They're not like, oh, how can I test him today? But things will happen where subconsciously, maybe they're going through something frustrating, that some decision they need to make, and maybe she'll suggest something that they wouldn't normally have chosen. Maybe it was against their normal standards, or how they wanted to conduct themselves or something, just because she's exasperated and it's just like, well, why don't we just do this thing? And if he agrees with her and takes the easy way rather than going, no, that's not how we want to be, we're gonna do this instead. She needs that, and he does too, because if he sees that she's gonna lower the standard, then the temptation is for him to too, because he doesn't want to have a battle. And so he's like, well, okay, I'll just go along with it. And then it just kind of devolves from there. And and so little things like that, because you can't be in the light if you're in fear. And so I think it's kind of a fear-based thing that's happening there. Just the little tests, just to see, you still got this? You still the captain of the ship, or the wheel spinning around, and we're just going to end up, sinking.
Yeah. Well, it's almost a bit like how you mentioned last time with the like the pill. What do you call it? Like the non-pregnancy pill, and how they can choose that they can become attracted to different men, whether they're on it or off it. It's kind of the same thing. It's like an energy thing. Sounds like they're testing. Are you really the right father or the right partner or whatever? And I guess that all really goes back to what are you taught a father is, right? And that's why we see all these people going after the wrong partners, because their example has been bad, and so they're going after that example, and so and you get two of those people together, and it just spiral down, right?
Exactly. And what was I going to say? There was something related to that. Another. We were talking about how in some societies there was this idea that women are the keepers or the standard bearers of the morality, and which really is true for that same thing we were just talking about. Is the men are busy doing the active out there in the world things. This is more of a spiritual layer where the men don't want to argue with women about what's allowed and what's not allowed from a moral standpoint, as far as interpersonal relations, I guess we'll put it that way. And I think in one of his recent videos had the notion that he tied it into the like the infantoriums and the orphan trains and all of that, where there was such a strict prohibition on being pregnant out of wedlock that you were immediately whisked away and they took your baby and you were never going to see it. And which, yes, that probably did happen, but there's actually a good reason that most people don't know about why it's so important. Because in the animal kingdom, a lot of times the female will choose the male. They fight each other or do their fancy dances or whatever they do to try to, because it's the female that's choosing. And humans are the same way, really. Women have the power, because most of the time a guy's not going to force himself on a woman. If she says no, then it's no, right? Or should be, right? And so she relaxes her standards, then the males follow suit. You know, they're not usually going to be the ones that say, oh no, we're not going to do this. You know,
Yeah.
they're more like, well, if this is okay with you, hey, it's great with me, you know. And
Yeah.
what we're
Mm.
not taught is that not only does a woman retain DNA from every pregnancy she's ever had, even if it didn't make it to full term, if she lost it early, she retains some of the DNA of that child. Well, she also retains the DNA of every partner she's ever been with. And I think if women, because they found there were Y chromosome cells like in women's brains. And they were like, how did those get there? So first they went to the baby route because that's the most obvious, you know, way. But then they found women who'd never been pregnant and had the same thing. And they've done some studies, not very many, because who wants to fund that, right? They don't want us to know that. But
No,
the ancient
no money.
and the royal families know it. You know, and that's why they're so selective. And, you know, I think a lot of women would change their behavior if they knew that or thought about that. It's like, oh, this guy seems great, but do I really want him with me for the rest of my life? You know, in,
Yeah.
you know, one way or another,
Well,
you
that's
know.
the thing. Yeah. I mean, or yeah, you know, God knows how many some have got in there. This is the thing. I mean, what does that do if you've got all these different adverse, and I mean, they're probably not, you know, high grade chromosomes, shall we say?
No,
Yeah, that's
they don't really know how it affects you, but it, you know, it's still there, so it obviously has
it's
some sort
part
of
of them.
effect. And they've done some tests
Definitely. I
on,
mean,
that's how they discovered it. I think it was just fruit flies or something teeny tiny like that, but they realized that the females were retaining the chromosomes from their previous partners because the offspring looked like the previous partners, not the current
oh,
partner.
really?
Right. So that's why it was so
Oh, wow.
to like the bloodlines and things is it, you know, they don't want anything else creeping in there. So
Mm.
you know,
They
very,
want to keep their
very
beady eyes
aware.
and their pointy noses. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, that's a
Wow,
thing.
isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would also, I mean, very much point to the probably just supposed to have one partner. I mean, that's you know, if that's a bodily function that happens,
Mm-hmm.
that's clearly going to, like you said, affect the woman and yeah, the way and yeah, I guess the way that she sees her children and her partner and everything. So that's I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, and it
And it's a good thing for women too. I mean, it's like, you know, you don't want to sort of play the field and then finally, you know, meet your Mr. Right, get pregnant, and the child pops out. It looks like your ex-boyfriend. It's like, oh, I wonder if I could
exactly.
find Mr. Right.
Right. That would kind of make a mess of things, you know. So
I wonder what that does, like for a DNA test. Then, I mean, that just throws a spanner in everything, doesn't it?
right. Yeah. Yeah. And they really need to do more investigation of that to get more of an idea of how
Because
that
there's
works.
probably literally women out there who have done that, and it's like, no, it's your child. And the
Mm-hmm.
guy goes, well, get a DNA test, and it comes out negative. And she's like, what? No, but, and no,
Right.
what does she? No legs to stand on. Oh gosh,
Right.
wow.
Yeah. Kind of crazy.
There you go.
Yeah. And
Bizarre.
and so, you know, all that to say women are the sort of the standard bearers there, and there really are good reasons for that, you know. And
Mm.
the most attractive quality in a man I've always thought is self-control. And you know, that's just something, like we were saying, is not taught. And you know, because she wants to see your power, she wants you to be a man, you know, but she wants to see that it's subject to your will, that yeah, you could go beat up that guy who was hitting on me, but but unless you have to, unless he's trying to hurt me, you won't.
Yeah.
You have control of yourself, which is difficult, because we're so disintegrated. When we were, at least according to the traditional creation stories, when we were first here, our souls and bodies were integrated. There weren't two opposing forces there. The body just followed the will. And now, they're at odds with each other. Like St. Paul said, why do I not do the things I want to do, and the things I don't want to do, I do. It's that. That expresses that exact thing, and we've all experienced that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that comes back to role models, doesn't it? It's like, unless you have a strong role model that you aspire to be like, then you can be turned. Then you will go with the group. They'll be like, it'll be fun. Come and get drunk and we'll do this. But if you have a picture of, well, no, that's not where I'm going there, then you can make a choice. But if you haven't got that, you've got no reference point, have you? So you sort of just go along with it, and before you know it, you get dragged down the hole.
Right. And those, it needs to start young. The fathers need to be teaching their sons before the hormones kick in, and so they can be ready for it and practice, things like, there was a traditional idea in the church called custody of the eyes, which is something that's taught to young men. Is, okay, well, yes, that woman over there is not wearing very many clothes, but you need to, avert your eyes out of respect for her. She's not a visual dessert for you to consume in your mind, and instead they're taught, well, I'm just looking, what harm does that do, right? And so it doesn't teach that self-control,
It's this whole externalized thing again, isn't it? Like, when people think about it, they're thinking it doesn't hurt her. They're not thinking how does it affect me, and that's the difference.
Right. Especially, I mean, it's not like you're not going to notice, or you're not, it's not going to set off the normal hormonal response that happens. That's normal. You don't have to feel guilty or bad or anything about that. It's what you do with it after, or how you steer that, Okay, so you saw, but you're not going to dwell on it. You're not going to make up a story in your mind. You're not going to think about her later, file her away.
Feel that whole scenario before you know it, you're getting married. Oh. But so many people do that, don't they?
Yeah, and that needs to be practiced, and and then there's the idea of, and this is another one of my unpopular opinions, but here I go. Women share in that.
Viewer discretion.
Yeah, right. Women share the responsibility there. Women these days are fond of saying, well, I can wear whatever I want and it shouldn't make any difference. And, it's all on the man to control himself. Well, no, it isn't. I can tell you, women have no idea the way men's minds work, and what they trigger that the man has to battle inside himself if he's trying to be a virtuous man. They just think they can, flaunt it all out there, and there should be nothing wrong with that if that's how they want to present themselves. But first of all, if you dress a certain way to get a certain kind of attention, you're going to get a certain kind of attention and a certain kind of man. And, and that works both ways. If a guy goes after that kind of woman, he can't expect if he marries her that she's all of a sudden going to be not that,
virtuous,
you know?
yeah.
And so, but yeah, women don't realize that what they wear does make a difference. And that I remember a couple situations when I was young and didn't know any better, you know, where things happened that would not have happened had I been wearing something else. And, you know, it took a couple times because I was young and thick-headed, I guess, where I put that connection together. Oh, well, maybe he would have not been so, you know, assertive if I was not speaking like this, you know. But women think that's what they have to do because they're worried that if they don't look like that, the other girls are going to look like that, and the other girls are going to get the attention. So it's just this vicious circle, you know.
Just so messed up, yeah. But I mean, again, it's just this externalizing everything. If everyone looks at it from the point of view as this has only got to do with me, it's like you say, if a woman wants to wear skimpy clothes, well, you know, she has the right to, you know, I guess, but she has to accept that what's going to happen is got nothing to do with anyone else. It's only got to do with her. And this is the problem. Everyone wants to point the finger, you know.
Right. Nobody wants to take responsibility.
But this is the thing. If you're going to wear it, then fine, go for it. But don't complain about it.
Right.
You know, or if you wear it once and you find out what happens, then don't do it again. You know, learn your lesson. But, you know.
Yeah, because you could end up in some real bad situations, you know. And especially if you're
who do you think you're going to attract?
Right.
You know, it's certain guys only go for certain girls, and we know that, and that's because they know deep down, like we were talking about before, the moral standards are different. They you know, they know that they're low standards if they go for those sort of kind of women, and if they go for something higher, they're just going to get rejected, and that's why they don't do it. They know, you know, they don't feel worthy. They know they're not on that level, you know, deep down. So it's really just a bloody race to the bottom, isn't it? It's a bit sad.
Right. Yeah, it's the lower chakra, upper chakra division again, you know, where if you know, in some ways, the women who dress like that are less intimidating than a woman who, you know, dresses in a more dignified way and presents herself more, you know, traditionally.
But you could also get two women, you know, of the same age or whatever, you know, similar looking with the same clothes on, and they could, you know, be taken, like, hold that completely differently, if you know what I mean. One could be walking into a board meeting and one could be standing on the corner, you know, depending on how, because it's to do with what's inside. And if you're wearing that because you makes you feel, you know, whatever, sexy and powerful or whatever, then cool, go for it. Because then you're not going to care what other people think, are you? It's going to be like, or if you know, if you do, you're going to backhand them. Don't you look there?
Yeah, well, and it's not just clothing, you know, it's all the things. It's how you carry yourself. It's how you talk, you know, what kind of jokes do you tell, or what kind of jokes do you laugh at? You know, what there's a whole lot to it. You know, and
standards and ethics and things is what it really is.
Yeah, because women are supposed to be the lovely half, you know, gentle and, you know, a little bit mysterious, you know, and, you know, they've done studies where they'll take pictures of women like in dresses and not like tight mini skirt dresses or anything, just, you know, a nice dress versus women in pants. And they can tell visually, you know, they'll put them in front of guys and they can track where their eyes go. And the women who are, you know where this is going, the women who are, you know, covered most of the parts or not, you know, wearing something revealing or too tight or any of that, you know, they look at their faces And otherwise, they're not looking at their faces. And even if you and you move differently in a dress. That's another thing. If you're listening to this and you're like, well, what can I try to maybe be more feminine? Maybe not in Australia in the winter time, but try wearing dresses. It feels different, and you move differently. You're not bending over the same. You're not, putting your legs up on things or sitting, with your legs open or things like a guy would do, like you do in pants, because well, why not? It's natural. And in pants, especially, well, there really is no such thing as not pants that don't get snug in the important parts for women. It's different than guys' pants. And there's, either from the back or the front, this goes back to men being visual. They're going to follow the lines. And if you look at the back or the front of a woman in a pair of tight jeans, there's an arrow there on both sides. And that's just where their eyes are going to go, and that's why they write songs about it, and so just keep that in mind. And, I think I told you the story where, like Lorenzo, when you were talking to him about it, he said that his family or people could, when he was trying to consciously be more masculine, people picked up on it and responded, like the women responded more in a more feminine way to his masculinity, and I think that definitely happens. If you say, try going to Home Depot, not in your jeans and a t-shirt, but wearing just a dress. You'd not dress up, because some people think, why would I wear a dress to Home Depot? But just, it can just be something
just a summer
simple,
dress,
casual, the guys would act differently, and not in a weird, patronizing way or a creepy way. It's like it triggers something, and they just want to help you. You're like, oh, this lady, there's a lady and she needs something. Let me go help her, and it's
I'm
nice,
yeah.
I mean, it kind of reinforces.
Go and save the damsel in distress.
Both sides, and because now, I mean, people are just they're just walking around in underwear, really. I mean, that's what workout clothes are. And people I think that more fabric isn't necessarily better. They think, well, I've got, my yoga pants on. Well, that's not necessarily less, whatever the word, I'm not sure what word I want there. Attractive in a not so than, a pair of running shorts, because it's a different, it outlines everything, and so there's more to it than just how much fabric am I wearing. It's where is it and how does it fit, and
how tight.
and and on the subject of workout clothes, we're in this cycle now where everybody wants to, they go work out because they're supposed to be all in shape. The women want Michelle Obama's arms and for some reason and things like that. And
sure.
But then they put in all this hard work, right? So then they want to wear clothes that show off their hard work, so they will get feedback on how great they look because of all the work they put in. And it's another cycle.
And yeah, exactly. Then they'd say, hang on, too much attention. What are you looking at me for? It's
right. They want,
and I think it comes down to being who you've got to become the person. How do I say it? Like you've got to become the half of the relationship that you want, if that makes sense. Like it's like you said, if you wear a dress, you act differently, and so the energy is different. That's why men act differently. So if men and women, if you want a higher standard or a good standard of partner, well, that means you have to raise yourself up to that level first, just in order to even be attractive or to find that. You've got to literally change, decide what you want to be and start living into it, really.
Right.
And be strong enough to stand up and recognize, no, look, that's, I'll just buy a yoga mat and do it at home if I'm wearing all these clothes,
Right.
if it's more comfortable. Because that's the thing, you don't have to go to a gym. The gym's just a big, for most people, it's like, look at me. Oh, look at me. Yeah, it's just a big meat market. It's not about,
Yeah,
it's not about being fit. It's about how good do I look,
Yeah. Yeah, and so I agree. I'm all for working
maybe,
out.
Maybe if you want a life partner, someone who you're going to be with when you're 70, maybe don't worry so much about what they look like when they're 25, body wise.
Yeah, and there's nothing bad about being fit.
That might change in 50 years.
Right. And it's natural that we're attracted, women are attracted to muscles because that implies protection, and men are attracted to curves because that implies, mother, nurturing.
Fertility.
Yeah, and fertility. And so, so it's not bad. It's just, it's been taken to such a level that,
well, yeah, I was just thinking, I think one of the main problems is, just to incriminate my species, is all the stuff is run by men. All the women's magazines, all the women's clothing lines, even women's schools, like girls' schools, all run by men. When back in the day, all those women's, societies or whatever were run by women. We used to have the women's, clubs or whatever we want to call them, and the men's clubs, and they would, they'd do their stuff like they had to, and then most of the time they'd come together. But you need this stuff, and there doesn't need to be a third shed that's bipolar, SJ, Dex, whatever. Only needs to be two, only men and women.
Right, because that's, and there's all sorts of reasons, I don't want to place blame on anyone who's elsewhere in that alphabet soup, because I think that was done purposefully,
Of course it was.
And so, a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's just behavior. You can change that. Well, I don't know that it's that easy. So, just trying to be sensitive.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the thing, we don't want to tell anyone that they're right or wrong or what to do, but that's also the thing. No one should be telling us what's right or wrong and what we have to do.
Right, yeah. And we're just kind of...
And what we have to accept. It's like straight people don't have parades and run down the street half naked going, oh, look, we're straight, we can make babies. It doesn't happen. It's only certain people. And it's because they're saying you must accept our behavior. But
that's my issue.
Guess what? We don't. We can say, no, do what you want. Just do it behind closed doors. We don't care what you do, but we don't want to see it. And we definitely don't want our kids seeing it.
Right. Because it's just not appropriate at any level, and it's
not
just
appropriate at all.
Right.
It's, once you're 18 or 21 or whatever, you can do what you want. You can make decisions. But yeah, this is all this stuff being pushed on, and that's why it's so confusing. I mean, imagine being a young person today with all this stuff being pushed through social media and accept this, accept that, and now it's starting to come out already. It's starting to push the whole bloody pedophiles agenda thing, and trying to normalize that now.
Yeah, there's a spectrum, and they're working their way, down it, and that's the next thing.
Down. Yeah.
And so that's where we're headed.
Trying to normalize all this disgusting behavior. So this is the thing. Everyone it's like exactly like what you said before. We need people who will make a stand and say no. We need men who go, no, that's wrong. I'm not going to join that crowd. Because it's a slippery slope, and they're now going for the kids, and and the problem is half these idiots promoting it, they don't even know what's going on. They're just so sort of involved with their ego and all this kind of stuff, and oh yeah, rah rah rah, I'm such a free being, and they're rolling out this agenda for evil people. So yeah, so If we do
Yeah,
say
well,
anything about that sort of spectre, that's what we're talking about. It's not the individuals, it's the movement.
right. Well, and a lot of I've heard quite a few people from that community say this, that the issue that isn't being addressed and won't be is that a lot of them are there because they were traumatized when they were little, you know, and you know, just
Well,
like
I've got a friend. I've got a couple of friends with interesting stories, but a friend he's gay, he's a gay man, but he's very against all this gay pride, you know, marches and pushing it. Basically, he's so against that, and he's always on about it, and there's a lot of these people out there, and it's probably the majority. As with everything, it's probably just the radical, you know, 20% or the stupid who can be led easily, 20% that are out there. But most of them, they, you know, he's the same as us. He's like, well, you aren't going to go and do it in the park, so neither am I. You know, if I have a relationship, it's behind my door. You know, and that's a moral thing. And you know, yeah, I applaud people like that. You know, because he's standing up and not going with the crowd. He can say, look, nah, this is no longer about me. This is about something else. And so in that case, he's. In that case, he, as a gay man, is being a lot more masculine than most of the men we have out there at the moment.
Yes.
So, you know, smoke that in your pipe, man. You bloody Kim junkie, you know, beer swilling people, you know, like to point the finger. How about standing up and acting? You know, show us you're better if you're better. Don't tell us, show us.
Yeah, well, and that's what's so difficult for men to do now because they've been beat down for so long. They don't know how to do that. You know, like even in their own homes, you know, men should be the one, if the daughters are wanting to wear, you know, certain clothes, they don't speak up anymore. They just let the mom handle that because they're afraid that they're going to get clobbered by the mom if they say anything. But that is one of their roles. They should be able to say. Now, it has to be done in love. It can't just be, you're not wearing that, oh, you look so sleazy, you know. That's not going to fix the problem. You know, he needs to approach it with, you know, love and instruction. And
yeah, it comes back to talking again, though, doesn't it? That like there's no defined roles, so defined roles would be very helpful. And then, of course, when situations like that come up, you know, like you say, you handle it sort of in the moment, and then you go and talk about it. What, you know, and you know, whatever I think this is the right way to go, and you decide, and yeah, mate, yeah, and go forward that way. But I think, yeah, you know, especially with young girls, I think dads are probably the best person to tell them what they should and shouldn't be wearing, because they've been young boys, and that's the reason why they know what young boys look at. So hello.
Right. And then there's
you
the
know,
whole princess programming thing, you know. Now I saw a video just the other day of this little 3-year-old girl, you know, with a crown on her head and a tutu, and her dad
doing
was
twerk.
What?
Was
Oh no, but
she
she
twerking?
was
Was that one?
No, thank goodness I didn't see that one. But
There's one of
way too
those.
many of those. People who think that's cute. It's not cute. But no, this little girl, though, he was trying to get her to help clean up whatever mess she made or whatever, you know, pick up your blocks or whatever you're done. And she was she was saying, but princesses don't have to pick up anything. And you know, we laugh at it, but she was serious. She's just like, no, look, I'm a princess. See the crown? You know, I don't need to pick up. What are you talking about? You know, and so they're indoctrinated with that from little, you know. And
well, I was just gonna say it's the parents that give the kids access to that information, and when the kids repeat it back, so many parents get mad at them. You know, it's like, you will pick that up. How dare you? Right, and it's like they don't stop to think, well, where did that come from? Oh crap, that's that show I let her watch. I better talk to her and explain that, that's not how it really works.
Right. Well, because they
And
can't
also, if you do that, they'll get the message. If you yell, not listening,
right.
I'm a princess, I'm not listening.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, it has to be communicated, not just yelled, and and how you say it, they'll get more from the tone of your voice than what you're actually saying. If they can feel, oh, he cares about me, and that's why he's telling me I can't do this, is totally different than, oh, he's just disgusted with me and he doesn't like me anyway, so I'm not going to listen to that,
Mm.
because I know
It's
I'll get
true.
attention from other people, if I do this. And
Well,
so
I was the same when I was a teenager. I worked out that pretty much 99% of the time that my parents put up, it was just because they were frustrated. And I was just like, well, if you're frustrated, it's got nothing to do with me, so I'm not listening to what you're saying.
yeah, rebel, were you?
So yeah, but if they had have actually taken if there was, I mean, there probably was, I don't know, but if they had something to communicate and they sat down and talked, then I would have, given them time. And this is
Right.
the thing. We think, a lot of people think that they're teaching their kids and disciplining them and all this kind of stuff, when they're not. They're just yelling at them, and the kids are going, well, you're an idiot, so I'm not, and in fact, I'm going to try and be the opposite to you because now I don't like you.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. And not saying anything is sometimes even worse than just yelling, because either then they also get, they learn, oh, well, they don't care what I do,
They don't
so
care.
I'll just do whatever I want then, and
Yeah.
they keep
Throwing a
pushing
rock
that
through a window
line.
didn't get much of a reaction, so now I'll go and steal a car.
Right.
Oh, no reaction. Now I'll
Right.
go and burn a house down. Oh, still no
Yeah.
reaction. Hey, kill
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah. Because psychologists will say no attention is worse than bad attention.
Mm,
So
exactly.
they're just trying for attention, and if you're not giving them any, then it's gonna end up, who knows what'll happen.
Bad. It's like at school, there was always that the fool, the kid who would just do
Right.
stupid stuff all the time, and
Right.
that's what they were doing. Bad attention is better than no attention. At
Yes.
least someone's looking at me and yelling at me rather than ignoring me, and yeah, that's what it comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. So,
Where
I
are
have
we
another
now?
book.
Another book, right?
I'm sorry, I'm always throwing books at you, but I do like to
Oh,
read a lot.
books are good.
But there's a good one by Ross Rosenberg. He's a psychologist and addiction specialist, and he wrote a book called The Human Magnet Syndrome. And it's mostly about, yeah.
It's not a
That's a
recent
whole
release,
different
is it?
thing now. Yeah, that means something completely different these days. But his point was, it's mostly about codependency and narcissism, and that it's a spectrum, and you're somewhere on it, and in the middle is balance. And the more codependent a person you are, the more narcissistic a person you will be attracted to and will attract. And the more healthy and balanced you are, closer to the middle, the more healthy and balanced a person you'll attract. And I think that's really true. And it's true, like we were saying earlier, about dressing a certain way. If you're down here on this end of the spectrum, you're going to attract a guy from the other end, and the closer you are to balance, that's the kind of person
you see it all the time with domineering people getting submissive partners, so they can dominate them.
Right. Well, and that's
different ends of the spectrum.
You're attracted to what's familiar. So if you
well, that's the thing, in their experience. If you're a dominator or whatever, then you've probably grown up with dominant parents or whatever, or father, and that's what you're used to. And if you're submissive, the same. And comfort zone.
Right. Which is why, you know, the classic, well, why are the good girls always attracted to the bad boys? You know, and that's why. It's because, you know, their father probably was not a great father. And so even if they meet a nice guy, he's not attractive. They're not feeling that pull, you know, like the magnet. And so all that is to say, you know, be aware of that and work on it before you put yourself out there in the dating pool, you know, because that will happen. And
yeah, and it's also, you know,
it's an energy thing again.
And people who need a partner, you know, they're just sort of asking for trouble, aren't they? Really, they're just like, just anyone, someone. Yeah. And really, if they spent that time or how, you know, years, whatever they spend at the bar, if they spent working on themselves and improving themselves, that person would just turn up.
Right.
They just knock on the door one day, literally. Right. That's how it works. So it's interesting. We're a little bit screwed up, aren't we?
Yeah, we're just doing all the wrong things and wondering why. You know.
Maybe that was what the last age was. We were just making sure we knew what was wrong, and now we're going to start doing it right.
Right. There we go. Yeah, we got it now.
We got it now. We know what's wrong.
Bad experiment.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
So.
Yes. Cool. All right. Anything else there, or?
I had that I didn't get to last time we were chatting. So.
That's pretty much it. Cool.
Yes, I agree.
Totally.
We're old enough we can talk like that now, right?
Yes.
We have plenty of experience.
Time to fly the coop. For sure. Awesome. All right. Well, nice to talk to you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dream well. Have a good sleep. And I'll be in touch tomorrow and let you know what's going on.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye, everybody.
Talk to you soon.